The Rippling Carpet by Reed. Before I was born, my parents decided to move to the coast and open their own little seaside hotel. The first thing they did when they moved in was to clean all the rooms, so they each took half to speed things up. My mom told me this story when I was little. She was in room number 8 doing some vacuuming when the hotel carpet started quote-unquote rippling. When I was little, I didn't think this sounded scary at all, as I just thought that maybe the carpet had got caught on the vacuum or something, and so I never really thought about it again. Fast forward to about a month ago. I remembered this old story and made fun of my mom a bit for thinking it was creepy, when it was obviously explainable. She looked confused and told me I must have not understood when I was little. Apparently, what had actually happened was that the entire carpet had rippled in a constant fluid wave-type motion, and all the furniture and herself had been lifted up and down off the floor for about 10 seconds. She then screamed bloody murder at my dad down the hall and told him they were selling the place before it had even opened. He managed to convince her otherwise, but she never went back in that room. It scares me more now because my mom doesn't believe in the supernatural or anything like that, and she doesn't have any other creepy stories at all. Just this one that she doesn't like to talk about often. The Headless Woman by the Army of Romulus. I worked as a waiter in an old hotel in Scotland that was reputedly haunted. The restaurant and the part with the bedrooms were separate buildings, and all on the ground floor. Remember this for later because it's important. One afternoon, we were expecting 2 elderly sisters to check in for a few nights. Friends of the owner and regular guests, though being a newish member of the staff, I'd not met them yet. Well, one of the other waiters mentioned that they'd arrived, and would I go put a bottle of claret in their room while they were being helped out of the car. No words. I picked a bottle, opened it, got 2 glasses and a tray, and nipped out the back of the restaurant, across the courtyard, past the 2 old ladies getting out of their car and into the main building, turned into the corridor leading to the bedrooms. Now at this point, I knew there was nobody else in the building. No other guests, and only the owner and a couple of waiters were around between lunch and dinner service. I'd also been told the stories about the hotel quote-unquote ghost. Apparently an old woman in gray who'd hanged herself when it was a coaching inn. I was therefore perturbed to see a headless figure in faded Victorian dress, shuffling away from me down the corridor in complete silence. Creatures of the Pool by CDC. I worked at a hotel in Florida, a fairly upscale place. One day, after a particularly bad string of thunderstorms, I went to clean the pool. They had an actual pool guy they called from time to time, but only when the pool was really bad. When I first looked at the pool, I brought the manager outside and told him I felt like it was out of my scope. The pool was covered in debris, leaves, plants, mulch, dirt, etc. Wanting to save a buck, he told me he thought I could handle it, though, so I was like, whatever, guess I'm scooping this thing out with a net all day. So I start scooping, probably had been scooping for an hour or so, when this girl comes to the pool and asks if it's swimmable. I ask her if she really wants to swim in that. She just kind of shrugged and decided to lie down in a sun chair until I finished scooping the pool out. We started making small talk, and finally she said she just wanted to dip her legs in. She looks at me like I'm crazy, but gets out. I point and she looks down and about. 10 to 12 of these giant cockroaches are now gathering near the wall where she was soaking her feet. She freaked out and ran off, and I assume went back to her room and had a nervous breakdown. I went and got the manager, told him to either call the pool guy or do it himself because I was not working with these monsters. He actually opened one of the pool filters and came across about 15 or so more of them in the filter. It was a sight you don't really unsee. The Mysterious Guest by God is a Squid. I work front desk. About an hour after checking a guest in, she came back downstairs asking to be moved. She happened to be in a room that connected to another room. After getting settled in, she said she started to hear noises coming from the other room, which weren't a concern, until the other people tried to open her connecting door from their side. The gap between her door and the door frame was just wide enough to see, just a sliver into the other room. So when she went over to tell the other person to stop, curiosity got the best of her, and she peeked through and saw a man staring at her from the other side. She told him to cut it out, and he just stood there at the door, trying the handle every once in a while. Not wanting to deal with it anymore, she came down and asked to be moved away from this creepy dude, which is truly understandable. So I checked the computer and noticed that there is no guest registered in that room. So either someone at the desk goofed and didn't complete the check-in, or someone is in the hotel that shouldn't be. No one answered when I called the room, so I sent security up. He called from the room saying that no one was in there. Now, our engineer happened to be at the front desk when I was discussing all this with another agent, and he mentioned that he had to go into that room to fix something. Mystery solved. He was in there fixing the door, making a racket and spooking this poor woman. Except, he was never able to get into the room because the door lock wasn't working, even with his master key card. Over the course of the night, nothing else happened, and no mystery man was ever found. The guest was a regular, so I don't think she was screwing with us, although I'm sure she could have just seen something in the shadows or whatever. Still, pretty creepy. The Ghost in the Gym by Jeff Surrey. I was once in a hotel with my sister, and we were walking through the halls. Then we decided to have some fun and see what staff doors were open. We got into the weight room. It was around 3 a.m., so it was supposed to be locked, and started screwing around with the weight equipment. Just as we're about to leave, this one employee gets up from the dark corner and walks out in front of us. We rush out just to see him walk down the stairs. Still in the mood of an adventure, we head to the stairs and see him going down and down. He went to the basement and then gone. The stairs ended in a cutoff area and there was nowhere to go, but he was gone. Creeped out, we took a zigzag path back to our room just to make sure we weren't going to be followed. The Floating Ghost by Rosie Does. This happened to me as a guest at a hotel, the Radisson in Gastown, the old part of Vancouver. The first thing that I saw was a figure walk past the window late at night. Only thing was, my room was on about the 4th floor and faced a wall. There was no fire escape outside or anything else someone could walk on. A couple of nights later, my bed suddenly gave a massive jolt. I was laying still, updating my LinkedIn on my laptop. My friend who was staying with me also saw the bed move. It was a divan, no legs to wobble or collapse. It just felt like the whole bed had been shunted hard. We asked the desk staff the next day whether anyone had reported anything, and they said there were stories about some of the rooms, but as far as they were aware, not ours. The Top Floor Ghost by Robin, 1961. The hotel I work at is an oldish building and likes to play up the rumors of ghosts in the hotel. In life, someone supposedly jumped off the roof after some bad news. Okay, really bad news. Late at night, I was sent to the top floor conference space to set it up for meetings the following day. I needed to set up a coffee station on the central wall. The large dining room / seminar space was dark. The light panel is a ludicrous assortment of dials, switches, and power levels. It had been expanded and fudged over its 50 years. I hit, toggle them all, no lights. Drop all the levers, spin all the dials, nothing. Pissed off that now I have to search for someone who knows the lights, I slam the panel door, spin on my heel, and walk towards the lit exit. As I'm walking, 3 lights directly over where I was meant to set up the station fade on. I look around, say, "Thank you, ma'am," and proceed to set up the coffee station. Lady in Red by Mike Oxbig. I worked in a hotel that was supposedly haunted by, quote, the Red Lady, who was an actress that committed suicide in our building back in the day. My first month on the job, we were short-staffed, so I was delivering guest folios and using the access stairwell. A lady in a red dress and red heels with movie star hair and classic good looks walked into the access stairwell, one flight down from me. Didn't even glance my way, just kept walking down. She didn't acknowledge me at all until she made it down about 3 flights and looked up at me. Her eyes looking dead, she said, "Where are the vending machines?" On again, off again, by backwards and heels. I worked housekeeping in a chain hotel. There was one room at the end of the hall where things would happen while you were working on it, and the same 2 things every time. Sometimes the faucets would start running. Not full blast or anything, but turned on enough to be running steadily. A half turn of the knob, I'd say. I'd be in the other room and suddenly hear water gurgling down the drain. Sometimes I'd be working on the tub and hear it on behind me. Whoever, whatever, would also turn on the TV. Heard, but not seen, by Anonymous. This happened at the Copper Queen Hotel in Bisbee, Arizona. As I unpacked between the 2 beds, I suddenly felt little tiny footsteps in the floor coming from the other side of my parents' bed. I stopped and listened. Then I heard the footsteps coming closer, and I felt them stop directly in front of the gap between the 2 beds where I stood. My heart was racing like crazy, and I was frozen in place. I finally gathered up the nerve to ask whatever it was, "Are you there?" I was embarrassed the moment it came out of my mouth because it may very well have been a kid out in the hallway. I shit you not, guys. I heard a giggle right in front of me. Then it stopped, and the little footsteps ran around to the other side of my bed. It giggled again and disappeared. Just as well, a loo was nearby, by Cannibal 808. I'm working late, just past midnight, when I have to go to the bathroom. As I'm going near, I hear a knocking sound, very fast-paced, like someone rapping with their knuckles, coming from behind me and over my shoulder. I look, and I see the door for the handicap sit-down stall is vibrating, which is what is making the knocking sound. It's moving like if someone had locked it from the inside and was bouncing it off the lock and the outer doorstop. I finish up, and it's still making that noise. I think that it could possibly be a coworker playing a prank, so I laugh and say, "Very funny," and it immediately stops. So I walk over, expecting the door to be locked with a coworker inside. So I knock, and the door swings wide open with no one inside. That rings a bell. By former Redditor. One night, I was working the front desk and received a call from a room complaining that the room above them was stomping around and being noisy. Nobody was checked into that room, and nobody was there when I checked it out. The room was turned into storage, and despite it being empty, the front desk would get random calls from that room all the time. And that, my friends, brings us to the end of another chilling episode of Black Scary Stories. Tonight, we've delved into the eerie world of creepy hotel stories, and I hope they've left you with a shiver down your spine and a curiosity for the unknown. Remember, these hotels are out there lurking in the shadows, waiting for the next unsuspecting guest. So the next time you check into a hotel, remember tonight's stories and keep your eyes open. You never know what might be lurking in the room next door. If you enjoyed tonight's tales of terror, don't forget to hit that like button and share these stories with your friends. They might need a good scare, too. And if you haven't already, subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss a moment of fear.